Here's Jimmy Duquette. He's a pal. He's all over the place on MLB Network Radio and here at MLB.com today. Jimmy, welcome. Always a pleasure.
Hey, Chris. How are you?
Good to have you aboard. How about Shields here? The Padres were smart. Probably if I asked them in the winter meetings if they were interested in Shields, they say price tag way too high. His price tag comes down. I guess they got a little break with the Dodgers with the contract for Kemp. They found some extra money. Probably moved the budget up some to bring Shields in. Let me hear your thoughts on that first. Fire away.
Yeah, you know what? I'll tell you what, Chris. I liked what the Padres did. First off, let's give A.J. Preller credit. Man, first-time general manager, all the moves that he's made. I remember when I was first-time GM with the Mets, I was running away from you and Francesa for most of my time there. So with Preller, I mean, the moves that he's made, obviously adding Shields is a huge, huge benefit to them. Now I think the rotation stacks up, maybe not quite with the Dodgers, but I think it stacks up favorably with the Giants and the Mets maybe, and the Cardinals, some of the top rotations in the game. So I really like the move, and really the money they got from Matt Kemp, they kind of pump it back into Shields. I think that's the other irony. And I think the agent, honestly, Chris, I think the agent butchered this one a little bit. The further you got away from January, the price tag almost always comes down.
What was the contract that he could have gotten if he signed right away, Jimmy? Could he have gotten $100 million for 5 years?
You know what? I talked to a couple of big-time agents who, you know, obviously have a little bit more experience than the current agent, Paige Odell. And their feeling was, first off, and I feel the same way, they were marketing him as a #1 starter. Shields is not a #1 starter. I don't know if you feel that. He's not. He's a number two, right?
I agree.
And certainly with his age, too. So, but I think he could have gotten close to $100 million back in December or early January if he was able to wrap it up that quickly. But he wasn't able to do it, and then the price tag went down. And, of course, now the Marlins got involved, the Cubs were involved, but they were only willing to go 3 years. He got the most that he could out of the Padres. But, you know, 4 at 75, that seems like a pretty good bargain, and some of that inflation that we've seen on the marketplace is out of it now.
Did Preller have to go to ownership to expand the budget? I mean, did he have to? Because, listen, I mean, we all know the Padres have had finite resources. Right. Did he go to ownership in the last 7? You've been a GM. I mean, did you go to ownership in the last 7 or 8 days and say, you know, listen, we can have Shields. It's more than my budget indicates. If you up the ante, we'll get him signed. Did he have to do that here?
Yeah, I think, you know what, it's a good question. At the end, the very end, when you're trying to get a pitcher of this caliber, you have to go to ownership, there's no doubt. But I think the interesting thing was kind of going back to why I think the agent butchered this is you don't have as much leverage as an agent in February. And so, you know, that last push that you're trying to make as an agent, you said, listen, you can have the player if you're willing to go to X. Well, A.J. Preller, the Padres, they didn't have to go there. They kind of called his bluff. They said, you know what, we're not going there. We think we're the best offer out there. And that's where the intelligence comes in, all the information that's out there in the marketplace. And so I think they were able to get that, and it became clearer that there wasn't a team out there going to give him 4 years. And so that came to their advantage, too. I think the Padres were willing to go to X, you know, $18 million, right in that range. And the fact that he was local, I think all of those factors played into it. But Preller, no doubt, got the clearance from ownership.
He did. All right, how about Cliff Lee? He might be next now. He's going to prove he's healthy in spring training. I still think Lee's got plenty left.
I do too.
I know he's had these minor injuries and everything else, but he doesn't throw the ball 100 miles an hour. I think he's perfect. I think he's still going to, in a big spot, he'd be very effective. Will there be a market for Cliff Lee? He's probably got about $40 million left on his deal. What can you tell me about him right now?
Yeah, you know what? And here's the thing, that vesting option comes into play because if he's healthy at the end of the year and he throws 200 innings, which I think he can do, then the option automatically vests at 27.5. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. So here's the interesting thing, though. I think that Shields and Lee are really linked together in some way because I think Lee's going to pitch maybe to a #2 type starter, #3 if he can stay healthy. You know, and the AAV for Shields is about 18.7, something in that range. So if you're Ruben tomorrow, you got to figure out how much money are you going to take back on Lee. You can't get somebody to take all of that money, very rarely, or you're not going to get back a decent prospect in return. So I think that money they take back, if you make him $15 million for the next 2 seasons, I think there'd be plenty of teams interested in Lee. And you might get a couple of mid-level guys. You're not going to get a top-level guy, I don't think, for Cliff Lee.
I think he's a good move if somebody wanted to get him. I think he's got something left. And then finally, Jim, how about the Orioles here? From a front office standpoint, you were a GM there, so you know it, and you did it with Flanagan, the late, great Mike Flanagan. What is your take here on this whole Orioles scenario in the offseason with the Blue Jays, and Dan Duquette's got to go back to Baltimore? How uncomfortable is it right now as they head to spring training in Sarasota with their front office?
Yeah, and I miss Flanny, by the way, Chris, too, and I know you do, too. Listen, I think with the situation there, it's a tough one because as much as you want to say, and I don't think it was a distraction to Dan in terms of trying to build the club. I do think that there were days where, maybe your focus was split. But, certainly Buck was not going to allow the team to not come up with a player just because, Dan and there was conversation going on with the Blue Jays for that job. I do think, though, what bears watching is the relationship with the ownership. I worked for Peter for a long time, Peter Angelos I'm talking about. And listen, he's a tough guy to work for, there's no doubt. And sometimes there's no rhyme or reason to his saying no or saying yes to decisions. And, that relationship was built up, but I would think, would have to suffer a little bit with some of this pushing and back and forth, making it appear like you want to go somewhere else. Listen, it was a promotion. He should have been allowed to go. In my opinion, of course, it's personal for me. I think he should have been allowed to go. But in the end, I think, it shouldn't impact it. And I think Buck will help in that regard to kind of smooth things over if there are some hurt feelings.